Our population was greater. People lived in the city rather than in the surrounding areas. And just to go to a fight was much easier than it would be today, and then less competition from other sports.
In the 30s, in the 40s, 50s, and even the 60s, boxing was very big in Western New York.
I've run into so many people that say my grandfather was a fighter, my father was a fighter.
Cities would have Irish fighters, or German fighters, or Italian fighters, or Jewish fighters.
It deserves a lot of respect, the sport of boxing in Western New York. We generated 6 world champions, and many people don't know that. And I was hoping to be number 7.
Well, the era in the late 20s and early 30s was probably the best for the lower weight fighters. There was the featherweights and the lightweights and the bandweights of that area, probably the best ever. And there were just so many of them. There was only 8 weight divisions. So you fought as a featherweight or a bandweight or a lightweight, and you fought the best in the country.
You have Sugar Ray Robinson coming to Buffalo fighting Henry Brim. In the one fight, it's a 10-round decision victory for Robinson, and in the second fight, it's a draw. And most people have always said that pound for pound, Sugar Ray Robinson was about the best fighter in boxing history, and here a local fighter held him to a draw when Robinson was at his prime.
The Golden Gloves tournaments would sell out the Buffalo Auditorium. Right now, the Golden Gloves take place in Canastota in a high school gymnasium.
The Scosa-Slattery fight, there were articles in the paper, all the Buffalo papers, for probably a good month to 6 weeks before the fight. And that would be almost every single day. They would send reporters to their training camps, and reports would be sent back every single day of the week, which you would never get with a fight if it was held in Buffalo today.
We have a lot of great history here locally. This is by no means Philadelphia, New Jersey, Las Vegas, but there are good fighters of the past, and I think there'll be more fighters to come.
The best thing with my research and Ring 44's research is that when you come across some information about an old fighter and their family members come up to you and say, I can't believe you knew about my father, or I know my grandfather was a fighter, thank you so much. So you can't forget that era, and you can't forget the fighters because it affects everybody's lives.
Well, I've been boxing for about a year and a half. I just got into boxing by watching a TV that was interesting, so I decided to try to see how it would go for me, and it's going good so far. First thing that probably brought me to the gym was probably, I guess, just found out that there was a gym around, so decided to try it out, see how it would go, and kind of it's working out good so far. If I wasn't here training at the gym, I'd probably be sitting at home, maybe doing some other sports, but besides that, I guess this would be it for me. I expect to come out of the Golden Gloves, Golden Glove champion, I guess. I'll never consider losing or anything like that. In the future, I see myself, if everything goes good for me as an amateur, maybe, yeah, I think going as a pro would probably be an idea, but probably college after high school would be probably the biggest idea for me right now.
Good.
Last week, I guess, came a little short. I didn't do as good as I wanted to. I feel like I kind of got beat real bad. Some people say I didn't get beat too bad, but I think I lost pretty bad. Guess I could do much better. I'm training harder now, see if I could win this weekend. I'm fighting again, see if I could redeem myself from that loss.
A lot of people aren't here. Some people aren't like this. I count. I don't know what you get about that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Our first champion was Frank Ernie, who fought at the turn of the century and won the light heavyweight championship. Later on, such big names as Jimmy Goodridge and Rocky Kansas come into play. They would win championships in the lightweight division, and of course then the big name after that was Jimmy Slattery, that won the light heavyweight championship title on 2 different occasions. Tommy Paul was a featherweight champion. George Nichols was a light heavyweight champion. And also during that time, we had a number of other fighters that were top contenders. Obviously, I had mentioned Lou Scosa before. Frankie Shale was a favorite of mine. I always thought he should have won the title. He defeated a number of big-name fighters and fighters that went on to win championships.
I've been boxing for 8 years, and I was born in Brooklyn, New York. And what got me into boxing was my dad, because he boxed in Brooklyn, and when we came here, that's all he wanted me to do was play football and box. So I came to this gym and I boxed with my dad, and I started to become good. So I started competing, won the Junior Olympics twice, and I'm still boxing. It was an easy fight. Threw my combinations good and hit the body a lot, and I won.
What was your game plan going in there?
Definitely jab, body shots. It was a funny way I came on the body shots because sparring helped me with the body shots, and fight night. It's funny, but yeah, fight night helped me with the body shots because I'm thinking if it works in a game, might as well work in the ring. So.
For me, I was horrible at other sports. I mean, basketball, hockey, it's just not for me. I decided to go in boxing at a very early age because a lot of my friends were into it. Now, I was always the smallest, I was always the lightest, and we would go into a gymnasium and there would never be anybody my size. And a few times I would go to tournaments and they would ask me if I'd be interested in getting in them. I said, yeah, no problem. I said, but the thing of it is, I don't got that much experience, and I would train hard for these tournaments, and as the years went on, you start getting better. The better fighter you're in there with, the more you learn, and as time goes on, you're getting better. I started in 1966, and I boxed up until 72, 73, and I think I'm still the only one ever to hold 5 open class Golden Glove titles. And I'm still very, very proud of that because of the fact that the tournament in Buffalo was the second largest tournament in the United States. It included Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and most of Canada. And it would start out, I don't know if you're familiar with the auditorium upstairs where they got an assembly hall. It's not real big, it holds maybe 2,000 people. It would be mobbed for 2 or 3 cards, and then if you made it to the finals, you would go downstairs and there'd be about 13,000, 14,000 people there. So it was a big deal, And you take a kid, 15, 16 years old, when you walk in front of 14,000 people, it's mind-boggling. I got a call on the phone from Rocco and Detective Eddie Neiman, who was a very close friend of mine, asking me would I be interested in running a club on Austin Street. I got down there and we sat down and talked, and they said what they were mainly interested in is a lot of these kids who just want to learn the basics of the sport. And I started out and I said, well, I'm in a dilemma now. I don't know what to do because it's not my forte. I don't know about training kids. And they said, the first thing you do is surround yourself with people who know boxing. What you don't know, they'll pick up on. So I got a bunch of people who had been in amateur boxing for years, people like Ray Fetzer and Woody Thompson, Ross's father, and Neiman and people like that. And they were like my crew. They would come down and at first it was rough. I mean, you're making all kinds of mistakes, but as time goes on, what they know brushes off on you.
I get in the zone, baby. Trying to master the jab. 2008 Olympian. It's me. If I don't, that's still gonna hear about me. I'm gonna die trying to make it. You know what I'm saying? I've been boxing for 5 years, you know. What got me into the gym, you know, is this deacon at my church. He goes by the name of Jimmy Jones. You know, he saw me throwing punches one day. You know, you used to box? I said, nah, I ain't never boxed. So you fight like a boxer, you throw punches like a boxer. You might have natural talent. I'm like, thought the guy was crazy, because I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, I knew I was going to be a star, but I didn't know in what. You know, I was like, wow, I was good in football, I was all right in basketball. But it's like, that's not what I wanted to do. Like, the first time I walked in the gym, put on a pair of boxing gloves, it was like love at first sight, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm sticking with this right here. And then ever since then, like, people didn't believe me. Like, oh, he gonna box. Family was laughing at me, people laughing at me. Oh, see me running, laughing at me. First fight I lost, I beat up. But it's all good. I guess that was God showing me, like, you know, you ain't gonna win them all. But you know, if you train hard and stay dedicated, good things will happen. We got a lot of good fighters in Jim XL Holmes, Johnny Davis. We got the young kids, you know. So, but I think they all look up to me, you know. I got the extra. I'm not saying that they're good fighters. I'm not saying they don't have drive, ambition, motivation. But you know, I have that extra edge where I live, eat, sleep, breathe boxing. Not saying they don't. It's just like if I can live in the gym, I would. And that's what I think they you know, admire about me. So sometimes things get intense and spiral in matches, but you know, it's all love. You know, I don't take it personal. It's all love. We all human beings. You know. So, you know, it's all love. We're a family. We're a family. This is my second family. We're my third family. Well, a lot of things go through your mind. Before a fight, what's on your mind? A lot of things go through your mind. Like you have the what ifs. What if this happened? People watch it. The pressure. You know, so a lot of things, I mean, but we'll go through my mind as a fighter. My mind just go, I try to stay focused, and I go through every fight knowing this ain't nothing but the gym. Because in the gym, ain't nobody in the gym watching you. Ain't nobody in the gym, see, in the fights, you got oohs and ahs, and you got people watching you. I black out. I focus on me and the person in front of me. And I think that this ain't nothing but the gym. If you can focus in the gym, then you can focus in the fight. It's nothing but the gym. Keep God first, I can't go wrong. Hard work, dedication. Hard work, dedication.
A lot of people recognize the city of Buffalo as Moscato country because you had the three Moscatos, my father, Joe, Phil, and the youngest of the fighters, Sam. They were all fighters in Buffalo. They all had a good record to boast about. And anytime You mentioned the city of Buffalo. They recognize the city of Buffalo as Moscato town or Moscato country.
Boxing was the main sport, and it made headlines every day. There was at least 2 or 3 fight cards a week. They fought at least 2 or 3 times a month, if not 4. But they just took off right from there, and pretty much got fed to the lions, because there was a lot of fighters out there that you had to climb the ladder to get to a championship fight or top 10 contender. And my father was a true heavyweight more than my Uncle Phil. He started out as a middleweight, I believe, and then worked his way up to light heavyweight. And eventually my Uncle Phil started fighting in the heavyweight ranks. But between the two of them, they took on the best in the business. And a lot of the opponents that they fought went on to fight either Joe Louis or Rocky Marciano. And for them to have fought those kind of guys, you had to have been one tough cookie.
Came to the gym to get in shape, and then he asked me, he said, well, do you want to compete? So I said, well, if I'm going to fight, I'm not going to come do it to lose, I'm coming to win. So I had my first fight, knocked the guy out, and been going ever since. I've been boxing now for about 5 years, and it's been going good. Started out as a novice, well, actually sub-novice, then a novice, then the open, open class fighter, and every year we got better. Before a fight started, I'm usually pretty nervous, thinking about everything, what's gonna happen and what go in there, what you want to do, what the other guy gonna try to do to stop you from doing what you're gonna do. But as soon as the bell ring, everything goes away. Boxing has changed me and made me a better person. The things you see out here, the physical abilities that you got that other people don't have, you know what I'm saying? And it just shows you different sides of life. Like, the one thing I want to accomplish in the ring is really the respect factor. You could get the belts, but all that, if you got them, if they was ill-gotten, then it ain't gonna mean nothing. But if you get that respect, then it don't matter how many losses you got or how many belts you got, everybody respects you.
Tommy Paul was born in Buffalo in 1909. He was christened Gaetano Papa, which was the family name, and the family changed their name to Paul. And he grew up on the Lower West Side. He went to school at Hutchinson School, which is now Hutch Tech. In those days, Italians didn't get many fights if they were boxers because of their name. It was mostly an Irish community or a Jewish community. Actually, his father was a fighter in the early 1900s, and he actually changed his name from Antonio Papa to Tony Paul. One day, he followed his brothers at the Singer's Gym, and then when they were at Singer's Gym, Tommy would be just fooling around, and Jack Singer, Jim, gave Tommy a tryout, and the rest is history, I guess. He started off very good at the Broadway Auditorium. He won his first 25, 26 fights, many of them by knockout, and became a crowd favorite. He fought, probably his biggest fights before he won the championship was he fought the bantamweight champion of the world, Panama Al Brown, who is a Hall of Famer right now. They fought to a 6-round draw at the Broadway Auditorium. He also fought Frankie Gennaro, who was the flyweight champion of the world, and he beat him. But that also was a non-title fight. Some of the top fighters of the area that he faced was Panama Al Brown, Frankie Gennaro, who I mentioned earlier, Fidel La Barba, who was a flyweight champion. He fought him 3 or 4 times in Buffalo. He fought Freddie Miller. He's also a Hall of Famer. Fought him 5 times. Kid Chocolate, he's another Hall of Famer. Baby Esmendi. There's just so many. I mean, all the top featherweights and bantamweights of the eras, he fought him. He won the title in 1932, May 26, 1932. There actually was Battling Battolino was the champion, and he gave up the title to move up to lightweight. And they had a tournament the National Boxing Association had a tournament, and they invited the top 8 featherweights in the world. And Tommy won the first 2 fights pretty easily, and he fought Johnny Penna out of New York. They fought in Detroit at the Olympia Stadium. 15-round fight. Tommy won 14 rounds, and he won the title. He won in May 26, 1932, lost it January 13th of 1933. Lost it to Freddie Miller in Chicago, 10-round decision. Tommy almost had him knocked out in the 3rd round, but they gave the decision to Freddie Miller. Tommy always said that I almost had him out. He can't believe he lost the decision. But he never did get a title fight after that, and he always wanted one. He was still rated in the top 10, top 5 for 4 or 5 years after that, but he could never get a title shot.
The first gym I went to was South Queens Boys Club in Jamaica, Queens, New York, my home. And I met George Washington, legendary trainer who just recently passed. Great man, trained some of the great fighters of this day and time, Riddick Bowe, Mark Breland, Ronald McCall, and a ton of other guys came through Bed-Stuy Boxing Club during that time. He probably touched every kid in Brooklyn in some way, shape, form, or fashion during that time. And that too, first, when I went to the gym, caught my eye, the way he dealt with people, his mannerism, his nature, made everybody believe they could be champ. And that's how I started. I got back into boxing about probably in 2000, 2001. And shortly after, I started training fighters again. And here we are a few years later, and we got a gym full of kids and a couple of very promising amateurs ranked in the state and in the country. So I'm proud of what these guys have done here. It was an outstanding turnout. I'm very proud of the city of Buffalo. They supported the Golden Gloves just like it was in the old days. We heard legends of the Ord being filled up to the rafters, and this was reminiscent of it. Although it wasn't the Ord, they filled up the gymnasium, and it was a proud moment for Buffalo, a proud moment for boxing. And these kids did an outstanding job. All of the Western New York clubs participated. It was an amazing night. Buffalo is a great town. It's education is premium. You have some of the very good colleges here, and I've been the beneficiary of a very wholesome environment at Buffalo State College, where I now work. So I'm extremely proud to be, I tell people now, I have to claim dual residency. Ever since I started dipping pizza and blue cheese, I had to start claiming dual residency. Southside Jamaica, Queens is home, always will be. I'm a native New Yorker, but Buffalo, I'm here, and this is a part of my life that's great. And we're going to do some great things. Boxing is back. Boxing is back in Buffalo. The Golden Gloves showed us that. We have some outstanding prospects, Lionel Thompson, XL Holmes, up-and-comers, and we got great things on the horizon for the city of Buffalo in boxing.
Well, growing up in South Buffalo, there was a lot of other Italian families and that participated in other sports, you know, more so than boxing or anything like that, you know. And what got me more or less interested in the sport of boxing was my father. My father was a previous, at one time, amateur fighter himself when he was coming around. When I was training as far as like an amateur or even in the pros, I had a tough time getting fights in the gym. All right, there was a lot of, because to me, I put my heart and soul into it, and I fought in the gym the same as I would fight in the ring, like that. And no sense in trying to doctor it in any respect or anything like this, because then you're only hurting yourself and you're cheating on yourself, you know. So when I moved out west on the West Coast, to San Francisco, that was when all of a sudden I had gotten a new manager, all right, which was Mike Scanlon, who was manager of Joey Jambro. And Joey and I became stablemates along with Bobby Scanlon. Bobby Scanlon was another stablemate of ours. And the three of us at the time, Mike was going out to California, and he wanted us to all come out there with him. So, and we did. You know, we all moved out there. In fact, we drove 2 cars out there, followed one another all the way out to San Francisco, you know. And but it was good. We met a lot of nice people out there and everything like this. And Well, my proudest moment in boxing, I think, it would be with Ralph Tiger Jones, when I defeated Ralph Tiger Jones. Because I had to get by him to get a shot at the title. And this is what was promised to me at the time before we even signed the contract for the fight and everything like this. That if you could get by this guy here, Ralph Tiger Jones was an excellent fighter. He was a good fighter. He was what you call the trial horse. Okay, in order to go any place, you got to get by him. You know, if you don't get by him, then your career is kind of stable at that time or something like that. But so I fought Tiger Jones and I beat him decisively, and trying to make the contract. The fight was over with. I had won the fight, and so I thought automatically they would fall into that category where I would get the title shot like that, and it didn't come out to be that way.
The sport of boxing means everything to me. It's been my whole life. My grandfather was a boxer. My uncle was a boxer. I'm a third generation boxer. Now, did I grow up imagining I would be a boxer? No. It was kind of an accident how I got involved at the age of 20, rather late in life. But it means everything to me. It's the reason I am where I am today. It's a wonderful sport. It's my favorite sport. I think it's the best sport. Growing up, I didn't think you could become a boxer. I didn't know how to become a boxer. I didn't think about that. I did what everyone else did. I played baseball. I played football. I was a good wrestler. It wasn't until after high school, a year or two went by, that I realized my athletic days are over. I don't have a scholarship. I was going to college and I had working part-time in a restaurant, kind of getting out of shape. And I said, my athletic days are over. I looked at my brother. We're such big boxing fans. We watch every major fight on television. We've been hearing my uncle's stories, my grandfather's stories for years and years. We were always drawn to the sport, but never imagined we would do it. And we said one day, let's go to one of those PAL gyms, Police Athletic League gyms, one of those community centers, and just fool around. We got boxing gloves in the basement. We always fool around. Let's just go fool around and see what we learned. So we went, and we never stopped. I never stopped. It was very important for me to represent Western New York and to fight in Western New York. Throughout my boxing career, whether it was Don King, whether it was Bob Arum, whether it was Sugar Ray Leonard, all of the higher-ups in boxing recommended and offered me to leave Western New York, saying you can't become a successful heavyweight contender from Western New York. It's never been done. It won't be done. This is not that type of town. Please come to Vegas. Please come to Big Bear, California. Please come to Texas. And to tell you the truth, I turned down some pretty good offers. I said, no, boxing was once a big boxing town. I was born here, raised here, educated here. I want to stay here. People thought I was crazy. People in the boxing world. 4 or 5 years went by, and the phone was ringing by all of those same individuals I mentioned earlier saying, we'd like to come to Buffalo and do a show. Can you want to box on one of our shows? Because I was attracting 6,000 in Niagara Falls, 10,000 at UB, 18,000 at HSBC Arena. Again, not because I'm a good fighter, because the people of Western New York, 1, they love their sports. 2, they love their own hometown guys. And I was an up-and-coming athlete from the town of Tonawanda, and I could have went and got beat that night. They were still going to come because I stayed in this town. They knew I stayed. I was doing a lot of community work. And the people here are the best. I would not have been as successful if I was from a town, say, if I was from Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, a big town like that. I would have kind of blended in, even if I was undefeated. People of Western New York love their sports, and they love their own people. I'm from the town of Tonawanda, and that's why I was successful. My toughest fight, I think, obviously, the Jurov fight. And I only say this because of the last round. That was my best performance. For the first 9 rounds, 8.5, I was beating a guy who was an Olympic gold medalist, the best boxer in the 1996 U.S. Olympics, the person to be fastest, became the cruiserweight champion the fastest, one of the best cruiserweights in history, other than Holyfield, Sugar De Leon, guys like that. came up to heavyweight, and I think he demanded a little more respect than he got. He can take a lot of punishment, and he's a tough, tough guy. And I think that was my best performance against the southpaw, and for 8.5 rounds, 9 rounds, I won that fight, handedly. But getting hit the way I did, I think, was somewhat illegally behind the head. I don't think it was intentional, but it's unfortunate. It happens. It's a sport, and I went down, and I don't recall much after that, and I was injured. I was injured badly. So to hang on, the toughest part of that fight was just to hang on. But I learned a lot about myself that fight, and that I'd kind of known a bit earlier in my career, that again, I'm not the best boxer in the world, but to beat me, you're going to have to really stop me. And my heart is very big, and I could be hurt, but if I get down, I'm going to do my damnedest to get back up. And I learned that about myself, that fight. Even if I'm losing, I'm going to do my best to get up. And it's part of my work ethic. Again, I know I'm not the best boxer, but I'll tell you what, going into the ring, if this guy beats me, then he deserves the win, because I did everything I could do possibly to prepare for it. Boxing maybe has laid out or helped the path for the rest of my life. Whether I ever box again or I don't ever box again, it has presented other opportunities for me. Everything I do in my life, I think, prepares me for something else. What I've done in the boxing business end, I think, will prepare me for politics, prepare me for what I have to face. But I was always very honest, respectful. I was very independent. I stood on my own 2 feet, and I'll do that in politics.
Ring 44 is an organization, is a part of a national organization, and we are 50 years old in Western New York. There's, and Ring 44 identifies Buffalo. Syracuse is Ring 27, New York is Ring 6, etc. And there are different rings around the country. Now, we have been existed for 50 years. I'm the 4th president. I have the 2nd longest tenure as president, being president for 10 years now. And it's a real privilege to represent the boxers in the community. And some of these boxers I idolized when I was a child. My father was an outstanding boxer. He won the national championship amateur. He boxed on the same Golden Glove team with Sugar Ray Robinson. And when he retired from boxing, he immediately started training. I kind of grew up under him, but he kind of stressed education. He would take us to the gym, but the bottom line was when he started losing his sight, I started helping him train fighters. Now, over the years, Ring 44 had a down period of about 10 years, but the boxers wanted to get back together and revitalize it because they just liked the idea that they could hang with each other and trade stories. We had no idea that the public was still there and still thirsting to find out where their friends were, where the boxers were. So when we reestablished it, it just took off. And as you see tonight, this dinner had approximately 240 people. And we get that kind of account every year when we honor boxing. It's the only time of the year where they can see all of their heroes that they watched when they were boxing years back, and they can see them today. Where there was something that was brought up, the bond to the ring. There's a very strong camaraderie in boxing because with all of the intensity that they use in the ring to compete with each other, they have that same intensity for bonding as friendships outside of the ring. And it was an amazing feat tonight. And I'm very proud to be president. I'm proud to represent such great people.
Woody, I came to him one day and I said, Woody, there's a lot I don't know about boxing. There's things that I can't teach these kids. And he had his kids with him, and he said, I'll teach you, I'll show you. You just don't go out there and throw punches. Everything is a technique. And the guy would work not only with his kids, but with the kids in that gymnasium. So I know you're up there, Woody, and I just want to say thank you very much because there's thousands of kids out there who owe you an awful lot. Can you please give these guys an applause? Thank you very much.